Tulsi is confirmed as Director of National Intelligence. Donald Trump is possibly ending another war, and it's not even 2 p.m. Lots to get to, plus this. SecDef Hegseth will no longer allow your tax dollars to go towards gender-affirming delusions for trans military members. The United States military exists to protect American interests, not pay for the end result of an identity crisis. Sorry, not sorry. We'll get into it all, but first a word from our sponsor. My friends at Cozy Earth are elevating love's little moments this Valentine's Day with the Cozy Earth bamboo sheet set. These sheets are ultra soft, temperature regulating, and sustainably crafted. I'm telling you guys, my husband and I and our 2 fur babies, we love these sheets. They're soft without being hot, and they're cozy without making you sweat. And they are the perfect Valentine's Day gift for your sweetheart or for anyone, really. They also come with a really cute carrying case. You'll love them. Take my word for it. Cozy Earth also blessed me with my new favorite pajama set. Cozy Earth's bamboo pajama sets are not only stylish, but they're also breathable, and they have a buttery soft fabric that you won't want to take off. I love lounging at home in them with my husband and the dogs, and they're always with me when I travel for work. They're cute and they're comfortable, and this is big. They're also breathable. So surprise your Valentine with Cozy Earth. Get 40% off at cozyearth.com/Tommy with my code Tommy. And don't forget, if you're asked in a post-purchase survey, let them know you heard about Cozy Earth right here on Tomi Lahren is Fearless. Elevate your love with Cozy Earth. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the show on YouTube at Tomi Lahren is Fearless. The show starts now. Lots to get to today, but this one is important to me. There are a lot of careers, professions, and areas of life where social experiments are just fine, like the local coffee shop, the theater department, or the club. But the military is not one of those areas. And now our Defense Department, under the leadership of Pete Hegseth, will reflect that. This week, our Secretary of Defense ordered an immediate pause on what the left likes to call gender-affirming care, but is really the medical or therapeutic bandage for gender dysfunction for active duty service members. Effective immediately, all new accessions or individuals with a history of gender dysphoria are paused, and all unscheduled, scheduled, or planned medical procedures associated with affirming or facilitating a gender transition for service members are paused. Look, call me crazy here, but if eyesight, asthma, or, the refusal of the COVID vaccine are impediments to one's military service, perhaps questioning your biology to the point where you require care should also be on that list. Joining me now to weigh in on that and so much more on a very, very busy news day is retired U.S. Marine Staff Sergeant and Fox News contributor, my friend Joey Jones. All right, Joey, I have a lot to get to, and I mean a lot, because literally minute by minute we're getting updates. So I have to go to some of the breaking news of the day. I want to start with Tulsi Gabbard before I get to all the other military stuff, because I have so much to ask you. But Tulsi Gabbard, we got her confirmation. That's fantastic. I'm wondering if you were surprised that she got confirmed, because it was a little tenuous there for a while, and if you're surprised that no Democrats wanted to sign on to confirm a former Democrat.
No, I'm not surprised at all. The only thing the Democrats care about really is themselves. I don't mean that sounds terrible. What I mean is Democrats will never snatch defeat from the jaws of victory on principle or ideology. It's always about, hey, we threw a big tent, regardless of what the outcome is, let's put this up for a win. That's just who they are. So when someone goes against the grain in any way, like Tulsi did, not just against Hillary, but in her entire tenure in Congress, that's a vendetta they won't forgive easily. And the one thing we can maybe give them credit for, which I think is a weakness, is they do fall in line. No matter how loud the squad gets on the House side, they end up voting, and the Senate's even more so. The thing about Republicans is that they have this independent streak in them that doesn't exist in Democrats. It goes back to the social or personal responsibility and self-determination. When you have 50 Republican senators, you might actually have 50 different opinions. You don't have that on the left. So when Tulsi essentially defected and said, you know what, this new right more represents the people than the old left or whatever that is, that cuts deep for them. And I did not expect any of them to vote for. And I'm not surprised that enough Republicans did. I think she handled herself very well in the hearing. I think that you have to respect somebody who doesn't fully backstep or backtrack and sidestep a question like on Edward Snowden. I have a different opinion on that, but I understand. I can see the logic in where she's coming from. And I think there needs to be more channels for people to be a whistleblower. And my concern with Edward Snowden is good people got hurt and got their lives in danger because of him, not necessarily that those things needed to be whistleblown. And so I think that she answered those tough questions honestly and without backtracking her own values. And I think at the end of the day, that mattered to some folks.
Yeah, I think so too. And hey, listen, we're not going to agree with every single cabinet member or even Donald Trump himself on everything that he
Exactly.
does, but it's about putting somebody in the position that's capable and able to serve the interests of the American people. And I understand Democrats have to fall in line. As a former Democrat, they have to oppose her, they have to oppose RFK Jr. But for me, when they're constantly squawking about diversity, I would think that they would actually applaud Donald Trump bringing in two former Democrats with maybe some diverse opinions. Tulsi Gabbard, I don't believe is a Republican. I think that she's more on the Republican side, but I don't find her to be a Republican. So I would think that Democrats, if they're thinking with their interests even, would be like, all right, we've got somebody that at least for most of her life was a Democrat. We've got a Kennedy who was a Democrat. Maybe we can work with them because they still have the foundations of being a Democrat. That actually concerns some Republicans, even like myself, but I would think Democrats would maybe even be open to it. They're not open to anything, though. A lot of things they're not open to, like, I don't know, saving taxpayer dollars. We're going to get to that. But some other things I want to talk about, too, the breaking news I got to get your take on. We got Donald Trump putting out a Truth Social post. He talked to Putin. We're getting closer to ending the war in Ukraine. I think that's great. Democrats are going to hate it. Nikki Haley's going to hate it. You know, the money is going to get cut off somewhere for some folks. They don't like when you end endless wars. But I'm wondering how they're going to spin this. Are we going to go back, Joey, to like, oh, it's because Donald Trump loves dictators. He loves Putin. Is that what we're going to get? I'm counting the minutes until that's the headline.
You know, I think it's going to be deeper than that. I think they're going to blame Trump specifically for places like Donetsk and Crimea staying in Russia, because I think Russia will gain ground in what was Ukraine, and there may be a trade where Ukraine gains ground in some places that they are currently holding, and that's something that Zelenskyy kind of alluded to. But I think what they'll do is they'll blame Donald Trump for the outcome of the war looking favorable to Russia. That's what I think. No one's talking about the fact that the outcome of the war, like it ending, would be favorable to every military-age male in Ukraine and every mother and daughter. A lot of women have fought in this war. A lot of women have died in this war. So just the people of Ukraine not dying anymore, man, that's pretty favorable. Ultimately, Ukraine is not a part of NATO. The connection between Russia and Ukraine goes further and deeper and longer than any other NATO country in the region. Simply saying we have to expend our treasure and collateral in Europe on Ukraine, because if we don't, Russia will invade a NATO country. That doesn't cut it for me. You got to give me more than that to sit here and say, absolutely, let's keep fighting it till we defeat Russia. So I think that finding an end to this war, knowing that Russia is the culprit, but also knowing Ukraine isn't this fully trustworthy friend that we need to bring into the fold, I think that's a very mature way to look at it. And, you know, they're probably honest, but you've got this old establishment idea that the United States needs to have a strong presence all over the world in order to be a superpower. And it's simply not true. And if having a strong presence means that we're barely getting by here, what's the point?
Yeah. Well, we're just starting to protect our own border. So that's interesting. Couple of things here that my initial thoughts on all of this, and I'm wondering if you see this at all. Zelenskyy, I don't trust him, right? I'm glad that he wants to make some concessions to Donald Trump. There was some talk earlier this week about the rare earth minerals. Maybe we're going to pay back some of what we took from the United States, and maybe we're going to give you something. That would be nice, you know, instead of just writing blank checks. But I'm going to tell you what I think here. The Biden era, Zelenskyy wasn't really down to do any negotiations. It was like, we just need to win the war. Well, then Donald Trump comes into office, and then suddenly they're ready to make a deal. And I think it's because they understand that they're not going to get a blank check anymore. So Zelensky's like, you know what, listen, the blank check isn't going to come, so we're going to stop expending our people. We'll cut a deal because we know Donald Trump isn't going to give us this blank check. And then the second part of that, I think that Zelenskyy saw Elon Musk and DOGE looking into waste, fraud, and abuse, and I think he was like, they might look into where some of this money is going in Ukraine, and we don't want that. So let's just end this. That's my take on it, because I don't trust Zelenskyy.
No, absolutely. So you got to understand Donald Trump for who he is, and people on the right do. I guess about, I don't know, 55% of the people in the country right now understand him for who he is. If he says something nice about Xi Jinping or Putin or Kim, he's not saying I like this human being. It cost him $0 and 0 lives to say something nice about these egomaniacs in order to, when he takes office, be able to pick up the phone and call Putin in a way that I don't think Biden could. And so, yeah, it's great to virtue signal, and it's great to stand on principle in this very outward way that may not actually accomplish anything. But as a real estate investor, as a businessman from Manhattan, Donald Trump understands it doesn't cost you anything to buy some favorability with words. If you get back people that they had kidnapped, if you stop people in Ukraine, Russia, and now North Korea from dying needlessly, if you fix the Gaza problem, which that's a whole nother thing, and I don't know where we are with that. But to go out and use messaging as a tool of diplomacy while still being able and willing, as we saw in Africa, to send some munitions to bad people's heads. That's good diplomacy. That's strength, and that's the biggest hit against Donald Trump, is that he's willing to have a conversation with Vladimir Putin. Listen, I don't know anything about Russia's ultimate intent. In other words, I'm not read into any programs, but I can step back and say, listen, a lot of their action is out of disparity. And maybe if we understand that psychologically, we can get somewhere here. They don't have to be our friend. They don't have to preach the same values, and we can understand that they're doing things that we don't like. But the inverse here is that we just find ourselves in nuclear war on principle. So that doesn't help me out either.
The ultimate goal should be to protect American interests. That's it. Like, I don't understand. Like, I love the rest of the world. They're great. I love us more. I mean, I guess that's controversial. I don't know. I want to talk about the Gaza thing real quick, though, because yesterday Donald Trump issued a warning, has been issuing this warning to Hamas. Hey, listen, if we don't have the hostages, if you don't play by the rules that were set forth, there's not going to be good things happening to you. I want to play this clip. I think this is another great moment for Donald Trump. Let's listen.
I don't think they're going to make the deadline personally. I think they want to play tough guy, but we'll see how tough they are. A bully is the weakest person, and they're bullies. Hamas is bullies.
You said all hell will break out if all the hostages are not released on Saturday. What did you mean by that?
I've looked at at the condition of people coming out of the hostage situation, and it's horrible. I don't want to do 2, and then we do another 2 in another week, and then we do 4 in 3 weeks. No. They either have them out by Saturday at 12 o'clock, or all bets are off.
Joey, first of all, I love the way he just casually says these things.
Yeah.
He's not animated about it. He's like, this is just the way it is. And I actually think that's more unnerving to our enemies than anything. But what do you think the response should be if we don't meet the deadline? We, as in Hamas, does not meet that deadline. What should happen?
It's difficult because you have a third person in this conversation. You have Israel there, and their lives are at stake too. They're the ones that share the border. So I would hope and I would imagine that this is done in concert with the Israeli government, at least Benjamin Netanyahu. My understanding is, listen, they still have screws to tighten on Iran. Hamas is nothing without foreign aid, right? And the other side of it is there are people that are deeply connected to Hamas in places like Qatar, Bahrain, other places that we have all kinds of connections and people in. And so I think that what Donald Trump is messaging to the leaders of Hamas is, wherever you are, probably the safest place you could be is in Gaza right now. Because if you're anywhere else, we can get our hands on you and your money and the things you value. I don't know that he means we're going to bomb you, because I don't think that even President Trump could withstand what would be the backlash from American troops and bombs in Gaza. I just don't think there's an appetite for that, whether that's right or wrong, not just internationally, but in our own country, because you're going to get hit from the far right and the far left on that. And maybe not even far, just the right and the left, because nobody wants to see people die anymore. That's not a bad thing. But if you are Hamas and they've got your name on a list and you've got a family and you've got assets in a bank and you think that Iran's going to help you, I think he's letting you know all of those things come off the table real quick in a way that really hurts. And maybe it means, hey, we're going to let Israel send in whatever they want. And if they run out of it, we'll fill it back up. Maybe that's what he means. But I think he understands, or I think that the leaders of Hamas understand exactly what he's saying.
Well, and I think the ambiguity of it is actually the genius. Like, we don't know. Will he bomb?
Let your imagination
Will he
run
not?
wild.
I mean, will pagers start going off? We don't know. And
Yeah.
that's the beauty of it. And that's one of the things I love about Donald Trump. I do wish that I could give him a hookup for some better face tanning, though. Happen to be proficient in the art of the fake tan. And I want to help him because I was watching that clip and the woman in me is just looking at it like, please, Trump, let's get some better face tan. But that's another issue. I don't really care what he does to his face tan. I just want to help him out. I think there's a better product for him that he can certainly afford. Probably get it for free. But moving along past that, all that stuff, I know you're very interested in it. I want to talk as well about the other big news of the week here. The USAID, USAID, whatever you want to call it. I watched the subcommittee hearing this morning. It was a dog and pony show. It was freaking ridiculous. I want to play one of the more ridiculous moments for you. I don't know how a quote, dick pic got into the conversation, but never, ever put it past Democrats to make themselves look totally foolish. Let's take a look at this.
Now, in the last Congress, Chairwoman Green literally showed a dick pic in our oversight congressional hearing. So I thought I'd bring one as well. Now, this, of course, we know is President Elon Musk. He's also the world's richest man. He was the biggest political donor in the last election. He has billions of dollars in conflicts of interest, and we know that he is leading a power grab, also abided by and encouraged by Donald Trump and, of course, the chairwoman, Congresswoman Green. But I also want to run through what DOGE actually is going to do. It's a demolition plan that's going to run through our people. This entire plan is about hurting the American social safety net and destroying our institutions. And it's important that we actually call out what is happening at this subcommittee. This is not about working with the richest man on the planet. This is actually about empowering. This committee wants to empower the richest person in the world to hurt people so they can take all of this money that they so-called want to save and then give it to themselves, their companies, and their billionaire.
Joey, maybe I missed this, but I have not once heard Elon Musk say we want to save all this money and give it to the billionaires. I've heard Donald Trump talk about extending the tax cuts that were for 80% of Americans. I have never once heard that we're going to save all this money and we're going to give it to Elon. But that is the repeated narrative that I keep hearing over and over and again from these clowns. And the fact that they want to just take the jab, like he's a billionaire, he's the richest man in the world. I don't know about you, Joey, but if I have a business, the United States should be run like a business, and I have the richest man in the world that says, you know what, for free, I want to look into it and I want to help you with your books, I would take him up on the offer. They don't want it. Why do you think?
If you look at this, they're attacking Elon Musk. They're not attacking Donald Trump. And I think that tells a lot because what is Elon doing? He's doing what Donald Trump promised to do. What is he doing? He's simplifying some of the things in the government. If we look at this, I guess, old mine that we're doing paperwork in, he's cutting waste and fraud. They're not rebutting that USAID shouldn't have been spending some of the money they were spending. They're marginalizing it and they're focusing in on Elon Musk. And the truth is, there is some liability. There is some conflict of interest with Elon Musk. You can't ignore that. I have to be honest. I mean, I'm all about it, but Elon Musk does have billion-dollar contracts with the federal government, and I want him to come out and be transparent on that, acknowledge it, and show why that is not a concern. But that aside, they're attacking Elon Musk because they can attack Donald Trump on this, because this is the mandate that their voters, that people that even voted for them, also voted for and want. So they're having to find this sacrificial lamb, this low-hanging fruit, this someone that may not be as popular as Trump, to attack that individual and create this idea in your imagination that it's all for his own enrichment. Because if you talk about what he's actually doing, you lose if you're in opposition to it with the majority of Americans. Now, they can say, well, they want to go after your Social Security and your disability and your health care. Well, you know what? If you're defrauding those things, they do want to take that away from you. And if there's so many Americans that are cheating on that they could win the election on it, I want to see that happen, because I want to know how many of my neighbors are willing to steal from the government, from me, in order to not have to work as hard. Because listen, I come from a place, I grew up in an area where if you got put on Social Security disability, that was like winning the lottery, because it was more money than what you could make in the factories here. I know who some of those people are, and I don't want them to feel like they can just defraud the government. I'm a guy that lost my legs in combat. I get a pension and I get health care, but I still go to work every day, and I'd be willing to give that up if that's what it took for this country to stay righted. That's the kind of people I want to share this country with. And if you're upset because You think you're getting a free ride you don't deserve? Well, you know what? I hope they do look at it.
Yeah, and it's not even just the Americans that are defrauding the system. It's people
That's
in
the problem.
Romania and Nigeria
Yeah.
and China.
Yeah.
When I listened to that subcommittee hearing today, I like to consider myself someone who's pretty clued into some of the inner workings, right? I like to consider myself somebody who pays attention to this. But when I heard them testify and say that these entitlement programs go on like an honor system, like a self-verification, self-certification, and that for 90 days they can't like check up on it. They don't have in-person checks. They don't really have a way to verify identity in an ironclad manner. I'm shocked by that. That shocks me. I'm like, wait, I know there's a lot of waste, fraud, and abuse here. I know there's a lot of people that game the system, but it doesn't seem very hard to game the system here. And that to me was illuminating. I don't know about you, but I'm like, excuse me, what?
So my mom was told when she applied for disability in late 90s that as long as you can get a doctor to sign off on an appeal twice, they rubber stamp it. So if you apply for Social Security disability and you're denied, on the second appeal, as long as you still have a doctor saying you're disabled, they rubber stamp it right there. It's not worth the money and time to continue to look into it. I don't believe that's not true today. I believe that was exactly how that was operating. She wasn't an anomaly. So likewise, at 16 years old, I went to the employment department here in my hometown to get a job, and some Hispanic dude had been using my Social Security number since I was 12 years old. It happened again when I was in my 20s. I got a call. And so I don't think that the Jones family is this big anomaly. I think if anything, we are Everytown America. And the anecdotes in my own life tell me exactly how these systems work. And there is fraud of the greatest scale. And like I said, I'm not beating up on poor folks or folks that need these things. I grew up in a family that needed them. My mom couldn't work. And she worked for 30 years getting surgeries on Social Security disability until she could work. And it was a proud moment when she could work again. And so I understand this from a very personal level. But listen, the government pays for my health care 3 different ways, right? They do. I get VA benefits. I get TRICARE, which is through Humana. I get DOD health care. And then the government pays the VA more money. They pay them all the money that is allotted for my health care. They pay them more money for what's called the Veterans Choice Program. What they say is, hey, you gave us all the money to take care of these 22 million veterans, but we're just not efficient enough. So could you give us more money so we could pay doctors out in town to do what we're supposed to do? So taxpayers are paying for my health care 4 times over. You think I'm going to complain if you just streamlined that into one insurance company that I could go to the doctor I wanted to, or tell me I had to choose either do this or do that, but we're not going to pay for it 4 times over? No. And the worst part about it is I still don't get good health care because those 4 entities fight amongst each other because I don't have decision-making power over it. Those are the ways that our company is getting defrauded by an inflated and really turning a blind eye government. And the reason why Democrats like it is if they can give you something and you get used to it and enjoy it, the fear of losing it is enough to go vote for them. So they love the more people they can get on the government tent in any way, shape, or form. And I hope that's not a off-color thing to say. I know we were talking about DPs earlier, but the more people they can get on the government dime, in their eyes, that's securing for life, locking you in to vote for them. That's a tactic. I'm sorry if it hurts feelings, but it's true. And I wish more politicians would talk about it plainly like we're talking about it right now.
Well, they can't talk about it that way. And the Democrats, you notice, they're not talking about the actual waste that's being uncovered. They're not defending the millions of dollars that are going to DEI crap in other countries. They're not defending that because they know how ridiculous that sounds. So they have to use the Elon thing. And listen, I think Elon loves himself. If I was the richest man in the world, I'd probably love myself that much too.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily bother me when I see him at the forefront because I think he's doing good things. Will he need to be reined in at some point? Maybe. But some of these moments, I think he's trolling the trolls, and I think it's pretty good. Here is him yesterday in the Oval Office with his son and with Donald Trump talking about the fact that he might have some detractors. Let's listen to it.
Your detractors, Mr. Musk.
I have to what?
Including a lot of Democrats.
I have detractors?
You do, sir.
I don't believe it.
Say that you're orchestrating a hostile takeover of government and doing it in a non-transparent way. What's your response to that criticism?
Well, first of all, you couldn't ask for a stronger mandate from the public. The public voted. We have a majority of the public voting for President Trump. We've won the House, we won the Senate. The people voted for major government reform.
Yeah, he's not wrong. And listen, is he a little quirky? Sure. But he brings up some
He's
good,
weird as hell.
yeah, I mean, but you know what? Listen, most geniuses are, right? Like,
Yeah.
you've got,
Yeah.
what really gets me is this. They're so mad. Elon Musk is so rich. He's so rich. Well, you loved him when you were in love with electric cars, first of all. So that's annoying to me. But also, it's like, yeah, George Soros, though, is also unelected, but he spends money to uproot the rule of law, to sow chaos and dissent and, you know, the hatred of law enforcement. That's what George Soros and his proxies do. Elon Musk is trying to, you know, I don't know, rescue people from a space station, provide these electric cars that the Democrats love so much, Starlink. I mean, you name it, he's doing it. He's a genius. One thing he brought up, though, you brought up that mine. This is another thing that boggled my mind. I was like, you've got to be kidding me. We're storing things in a mine. You brought it up. I want to play the clip for those that didn't see it yesterday, and then I want to get your extended take on this.
The most number of people that could retire possibly in a month is 10,000. We're like, well, why is that? Well, because all the retirement paperwork is manual on paper. It's manually calculated, then written down on a piece of paper. Then it goes down a mine. And I'm like, what do you mean a mine? Like, yeah, there's a limestone mine where we store all the retirement paperwork. And you look at a picture of this mine. We'll post some pictures afterwards. And this mine looks like something out of the 50s because it was started in 1955. So it looks like it's like a time warp. And then the speed, then the limiting factor is the speed at which the mine shaft elevator can move determines how many people can retire from the federal government. And the elevator breaks down sometimes, and then nobody can retire. Doesn't that sound crazy? There's like 1,000 people that work on this. So I think if we take those people and say, like, you know what, instead of working in a mine shaft and carrying manila envelopes to, you know, boxes in a mine shaft, you could do practically anything else, and you would add to the goods and services of the United States in a more useful way.
Joey, were you aware of this mine? Because I sure wasn't.
No, I don't think this is something they advertise. When I went from Walter Reed to the VA to finish checking out of the military and getting more than one government agency to believe that I'm disabled, I literally took a cart like you see at Home Depot with crates of paperwork on it. My medical record was tangible. It wasn't electronic. It blew my mind. This is 2012. So it is. I mean, we are inefficient. There's a reason why we're vulnerable in cybersecurity, and that might be a reason why they don't want to move to electronic, because we haven't beefed up there. He's exposing so many vulnerabilities, and I hope that he also proposes solutions. And we do carry ourselves into what would be the 21st century. But just the fact that this is a slow and costly process that we would say is analog rather than digital, the fact that that's never bothered anyone before, that's the real issue here. Not what's happening there, but the fact that you have thousands of people in government who have rotated through in the last few decades that would have eyes on this and say, that's not a problem, or that's not a problem worth fixing. It takes pulling off the Band-Aid to see what the wounds are, and it hurts a little bit, but sometimes sunlight's the best disinfectant, right? You got to get that sore out in front of the sun and let vitamin D do its job. And I guess in this case, that's Donald Trump.
Yeah, vitamin D and vitamin Elon. Oh, wow.
No,
Okay.
that analogy went around the world. I'm sorry.
I love it. The last thing I do want to talk to you about is what I started with. And there's so much breaking news today, but I think this is important because your perspective on it is actually very important for me and for my viewers to hear. Talked about what Pete Hegseth is doing, Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, surrounding trans members of the military and their services and their procedures and their care, and saying, listen, we need to take another look at this. We need to pause this. Now, there are folks out there that you're going to get the argument that, hey, if you want to serve your country, that's a noble endeavor. You should be able to do it. I don't disagree. However, I think there's some things that could impair your ability to serve your country, and you know better than I. So I want you to tell my audience what's going on here and how you feel about it.
Yeah. So, I served 8 years of this 20-year war. And on the back end of it, the big conversation is we don't do enough for our vets. And usually that hones in on PTSD, veteran suicide, traumatic brain injury. We are so sensitive right now to the psychological mindset. I mean, we saw what happened in Vegas at New Year. the best story we have on that veteran is that he kind of went crazy, served his country honorably. He kind of went crazy, became a liability, and now he's driving a Tesla to the Trump hotel and blowing himself up with fireworks. Okay, well, if we're taking all this time to acknowledge that someone needs to be of sound mind and body, to be handed a gun or even the knowledge to use weapons of mass destruction, literally, to be engaged in conflict, why is something like gender dysphoria, being confused about what you are as a person? They say, hey, by the way, if you don't let these kids get their surgeries, they're going to commit suicide. So if you're already linking suicide to this psychological state, why is it not a liability to have people going through that in the military active duty? And I don't want to hear this idea, well, we can put them in an office building somewhere. That's not how the military works. If you're wearing camouflage utilities, you can be a combatant. I'm sorry, that's just how it is. On top of that, why would we pay for someone to get cosmetic and gender changing surgeries and allow them to take the time it takes to recover? If I go out and break my wrist on a dirt bike before I deploy, I'm in trouble because I'm pulled out of the fight for 3 months. And I just put someone else's life at risk that has to take my place that doesn't have the training I have. So there's a lot of reasons that are very practical and intellectual that have nothing to do with the social aspect of whether or not you agree with it. The truth is, to listen to their argument, suicide ideation, depression, and anxiety are interlinked with gender dysphoria. How is that not a disqualifying state of mind? Doesn't mean you're a bad person. Doesn't mean you don't get to change how the world perceives you as an adult. I think, whether I agree with it or not, I think those are freedoms, that self-expression that I lost my legs for, my buddies lost their life for. There's a difference between imposing that view on someone else, making someone call you something they see that you're not. There's a difference between that, because I have the freedom to say that's bullshit. But if that's how you want to express yourself and how you want to live your life, I respect that. And I don't want to take that away from you. But I don't want you to enter into a boot camp that is psychologically taxing to begin with. If you enlist in the Marine Corps, you are absolutely broken down and built back up. They don't let you paint your nails or put on makeup, not because they want to attack your femininity, but because you're not supposed to think you're special. It's not about you anymore. I literally spent years developing a program to teach veterans to care about what their passions and interests were after the military, because that wasn't important when you're a rank and file troop. And the reason why it wasn't important is if you can't put the team above yourself, you're a weak link and you're going to get people killed. I'm sorry, but serving in the military is not living in America. It's different. It's completely different. It's a meritocracy. It's also not freedom. You don't have the freedom of expression when you're wearing that uniform. You're representing something other than yourself. You chose that. You entered in that contract. You raised your right hand and said, you know what? I'm willing to be one of the numbers. I'm willing to be one of the little pieces of toy soldier that gets flipped off the table when we go to war, because that's what it takes to defend this country and the innocent people in it. And if you have problems psychologically that disqualify you from it, it's not an attack on you as an individual, because you know what? Not everybody gets to do it. I'm sorry. It's a sacrifice, but it's one you got to earn. There's nothing fair about it. Fair is where you pin a blue ribbon on a pig down at the county line. This is not about fair. This is about being able to go in there, put everything that you enjoy personally and identify as on the table, on the shelf, forget about it, get a bad haircut, keep your face shaved, wear a uniform that doesn't fit right, and go out and learn how to kill people or do things that help the guys and gals that kill people. That's all it's about. Pete Hegseth brought that message. The president rewarded him for it. The Senate confirmed him for it. And by and large, the people serving and joining to serve believe in it too.
Well, Joey, nobody can put it better than you, and I really appreciate your explanation, because I think it is so not only logical, but also compassionate in the same way. So I really appreciate you sharing it, as always, and everything on this busy news day. I couldn't think of anyone better to have. Thank you so much. Please come back again, and God bless you, and I hope to see you soon in New York or wherever we should meet.
Hey, keep it honest. I appreciate you. I love what you're doing.
Thanks, Joey, so much. I'll see you soon. All right, folks, Democrats couldn't stop Trump's re-election with lawfare. They couldn't win you over with it, but they're still using it to carry out their agenda and cover their asses. It's time for Final Thoughts, sponsored by Cozy Earth. If you thought the days of activist judges were over, well, you were sadly wrong, because Democrats are once again relying on these judges to do their dirty work and extend their grift another day. They say exposing waste, fraud, and abuse presents a constitutional crisis because they full well know that once their waste and perhaps their kickbacks are exposed, the genie will not fit back in the bottle. So they're rushing like crazy, like bats out of hell, to keep all this information out of the public domain. Because if the average American realizes the extent of how they've been ripped off, Democrats will never be able to get away with it again. So enter the ankle biter judges. And the way they justify it is that Elon wants to access private and personal data. No, Elon wants to open the books. How many times does he have to say it? Look, I don't know how this all ends, but I'll tell you it's exhausting. It's absolutely exhausting that we finally have a president actively doing everything he can to shrink government and end the abuse of your tax dollars, and he's coming up against this kind of resistance. This is why nothing ever gets done in D.C., because the people with a vested interest in the waste will go to any length to keep the gravy flowing. Trump and Elon, two brilliant billionaire businessmen, are trying to run our country like a viable business, and Democrats fight it tooth and nail. The Democrat talking point seems to be that they're all for cutting the waste, fraud, and abuse. Oh, but the one caveat to that is they don't want to know where the waste, fraud, and abuse is, though. It's a real shame, and I hope Democrat voters are paying attention. Your leaders are fighting for illegal immigrants and waste, and they think you're dumb enough to believe it's all about saving the Constitution. Good Lord. Those are my final thoughts. Please be sure to tune in tomorrow live at 1 p.m. Eastern. Catch full episodes of the show on Fox Nation whenever you want. Please like and subscribe to the YouTube channel at Tomi Lahren is Fearless. From Nashville, God bless and take care. Hey, thanks for watching. If you want more of my hottest takes, must-see conversations, and of course, my final thoughts, click here and make sure you subscribe here so you never miss a beat. I'll be here every weekday, and I hope you'll join me.